ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد. So inshallah we will continue with our Arabic grammar lessons, Nahwa. So we will now start discussing the Mansubat. This is when nouns are in the accusative state, Halat al-Nasab. Generally this is associated with words which are in an object position in a sentence, but of course in Arabic it's not limited to an object. But these are auxiliary parts of a sentence. They aren't the primary part of a sentence. And like the marfu'at, they occur in many cases because of the verb prior to it. And that's why it was mentioned before majrurat, which occur as a result of a noun, not verbs. And there are 12 types. So there's maf'ul mutlaq, which refers to a root noun. So it's a word which is the root of a verb, and we'll discuss more of that inshallah. Maf'ul bihi, which is the object. So you have the subject of a verb, which is the one that is carrying out the verb, and then object of a verb is the thing upon which action takes place. Then you have maf'ul fi, which is a word which shows and expresses when and where, the time and place when the action occurs. And you have maf'ul lahu, which expresses the reason why an action occurs. Then you have maf'ul ma'ahu, which is used to show that this noun it occurs together with the object prior to it, which we'll discuss and explain. Then we have hal, which expresses the state and situation of the fa'il or the maf'ul, or both of them, so how the action took place for them. And then we have a tamyiz, which is used for clarification, like when you have a number, you could say I have 20, and then you say 20 what? I have 20 dirhams, so dirham will be mansub. It's used to clarify the ambiguity of 20. You have mustathna, which is used to exclude a noun from a previous sentence. Then you have the khabar of kana, which we've discussed slightly, the ism of inna, which we've slightly discussed, the mansub of la, which is for negating genus, which we've slightly discussed, and the khabar of ma and la, which resemble laysa, which we've slightly discussed. So begin with maf'ul mutlaq. It's a masdar, which you can define as a root noun. So if you have a verb which is like daraba or nasara, then their nominal form is known as the root noun or the masdar. So ad-darbu will be the masdar of daraba, and an-nasru will be the masdar of nasara. And when they occur in sentences, maf'ul mutlaq, these masdars, these root nouns, when they occur in a sentence, then they will be in the meaning of the verb which occurred before it. Very often it will be in a derivative form of the verb. And this is used, what's the purpose of having this? It's used for ta'keed. For example, darabtu darban, which means I hit, with emphasis, capital HIT. Or it's used to express the number of something. For example, jalastu jalsatan or jalsataini or jalsatin. It's like I sat once, or I sat twice, or I sat many times. And it's also used for bayanin naw', for expressing the type of action that occurred. So jalastu jilsat al-qari, I sat like a reciter. And I've already explained how the word just simply is in the meaning of the verb before it. It does not have to have the same letters in it. It doesn't need to carry the 3 root letters of the verb within it. It can just have the same meaning. For example, qa'ada and jalasa both mean to sit. So I can say qa'adtu julusan. So I sat down, like firmly. It's just used for emphasis. Sometimes the verb is omitted when there is an indication, a qarina, like in the saying khayra maqdamin, which just means welcome. It literally means qadimta quduman khayra maqdamin. The word khayra is ism tafadil, which means it's a superlative noun. It's used to compare and show what's better than the other. Uh, in this case, khayra is ism tafdeel, and its masdar and maf'ul mutlaq quality is considered based on its relation to the mawsuf, the word being described, which is coming, arriving, or the word which is connected to it. So maqdamin here. So if there was a word before it that like a verb like qadimta, then the description of qadimta is arriving, and khayra will be used to show that to amplify the meaning of that, or it could be used to amplify the meaning of the word which comes after it, which is next to it. It's mudaf ilayh, which is maqdamin in this example. So it would amplify the meaning. So it's used here to show to in this case khayra, although it's called an ism tafdeel, here it just means to be good. So you have a good welcome. Khayra, the best of arrivals. And that in this is a so you it's permissible for me to say qadimta quduman khayra maqdamin, qadimta quduman khayra maqdamin, or I could, and here is a maf'ul mutlaq khayra maqdamin, is used to uh, express the type of arriving that I wish for you to have. And here it's permissible for me to get rid of qadimta quduman, but there are some scenarios where it is necessary to not mention the verb, and this is based on our usage simai. They call this simai. So whenever you heard the word sima'an, then this just means based on Arabic usage. Sama'a means to listen, to hear. So what we've heard being used by the Arabs, we found that they don't in certain scenarios mention a verb at all. For example, saqiyan, like may Allah quench your thirst, or may Allah soothe you, or shukran, like thank you, or hamdan, like gratefulness as well. Carrying on, we also have maf'ul bihi. So maf'ul bihi is an object. The action of the subject occurs upon this word. So for example, daraba zaydun amran. So we're discussing mansubat. So the word here amran, although it's written with a waw on it to differentiate from Umar, it will be considered a sahih word. Therefore, it will be represented by two fathas when it's nakira, or when it doesn't have lam, the alif lam before it. So Amr isn't nakira, but it doesn't have alif lam before it. So therefore, you'll carry a tanween, even though it's a proper name. It's a definite word. It's referring to someone specific. When words which are not sahih, sorry, when words do not carry a waw or ya at the end, and they are sahih and they're not mudaf to anything, then if we remember, we said that in the halatul nasab they will be represented by fatha. So here daraba zaydun amran. So you'll notice the ra amran, that the last vowel is not fatha. So this is the word which we're focusing on, which is the object. So it means that the action of hitting carried out by Zayd was done upon Amr. In other words, Zayd hit Amr. So the ruling of this is sometimes the maf'ul bihi itself can come before the fa'il. It says fi'il here is supposed to be fa'il. It can come before the subject. So you can say daraba amran zaydun. This is because the sound of amran itself informs us that it's not the marfu, because ran, when because it's a sahih word, it shows that it's represented by two fathas. So we know whichever word is represented by two fathas, if it's sahih, it will be mansub. So we know, we can differentiate between mansub and marfu like this. So we can say daraba amran zaydun. So sometimes the verb is also omitted. This is when there is a qarina, an indication. Qarina just means indication. This can be optional, like the response to a question. So someone just says, who should I tell? Who should I inform? Like man akhbartu, or man ukhbiru. Who should I tell? Right? And then someone just responds Zaydan, which means akhbir Zaydan, tell Zayd. And it's necessary to omit, to remove the verb in 4 scenarios. 3 of these instances are according to rules, and 1 is based on usage. It's sama'an. So the first one is tahdhir. This is warning. So there's two ways that the hadith can occur when a warning in Arabic. So in Arabic, I could just say, just add this objective pronoun, detached objective pronoun. So dhamir mansub munfasil, like iya, and because I'm talking to you, I'm warning you, I'll add the kaf dhamir, which is referring to the second person. So iyaka wal asada, which means so iyaka wal asada means be aware of the lion. So similarly, when a word is repeated, like at-tariqa, then it's also a form of warning. So it means the road. It means ittaqi tariqa. So just to clarify, at-tahdhir, which means warning, is when there is an assumed verb, or the assumed verb is ittaqi. We assume this is what is governing the mansub noun which is present in the text or the speech, and we said that this can be done by adding the dhamir mansub munfasil, like iyaka, and then adding a waw, and then the mansub word asada in this case. So iyaka wal asada, which means ittaqil asada, really. So be cautious of the lion, or ittaqi ka wal asada. And sometimes when you repeat a word several twice, like a tariqa, like we said, then the word will also be it will also be in the meaning of ittaqi tariqa, like be careful of the path. And the second instance, or the second instance of when a verb must be omitted and hidden is when there you have a noun and there is a verb or something similar to a verb after it, and this verb is preoccupied with the noun that comes after it, and which has and therefore it cannot be the governance of the noun in question. For example, Zaydan akramtuhu, Zayd, I honored him. So the verb is unable to be the amil, the governance for Zaydan, because it is already the amil of its own pronoun, which is akramtuhu. So it has its own marfu pronoun within it, which is tu, which means I honored, and who is dhamir mansub muttasil. It's an attached objective pronoun which is attached to it, and the verb is occupied with its attached objective pronoun. Therefore, it cannot be governing Zaydan, which occurs before it as well. Therefore, you have to assume that there's another verb which is before Zaydan, which is in the meaning of the verb which occurs after it. So you will say akramtuhu helps us determine that there is an omitted akramtu before Zayd. So it's actually akramtu Zaydan akramtuhu. So once again, this is known as ma udmira amiluhu ala sharitati tafsir. So when a verb is omitted, when a mansub noun's amil, governing agent, is hidden because it is expressed and explained by a verb after it. So that's the second type. The third type I wrote forth here, but it's really the third instance when it's necessary to omit a verb, is when the word is munada. So in these cases, you have a particle of nida, which is for vocation. It's used to call. So you have something like ya, aya, haya, ay, and hamza maftuha. So in the instance of ya Abdullah, you know it is mansub, and we're going to discuss the munada and its states. But just a heads up, when it's mudaf, then it will be mansub. So ya Abdullah, the munada here, the word that's being called is Abdullah, and it's mansub, and it's really in the meaning of ad'u Abdullah, I am calling Abdullah. And sometimes even these vocative now particles like ya can be omitted, as we know in English. I don't say oh Zaid, I'll just say Zaid, can you hear me? instead of saying oh Zaid. So as I just said, there are different i'rabs, cases which munada can occur in, depending on depending on the scenario. So when the munada itself is a ma'rifa, it's a definite word, like ar-rajulu, right? And the word, and it's mufrad, it's singular, and it will be mabni on alamatul rafa. So it will be based on the rafa symbol, like a dhamma. So it depends on what type of word is it. What is it? Is it munsarif? Does it have a harf illat on it? Is it dual, plural, or is it feminine? And like we in this example, Zayd is being used again because it's ma'rifa, it's a proper name or proper noun, and it's singular, and it's represented by a dhamma. So you'll say ya Zaydun. And we have also said that halatu rafa, the rafa case, can be represented by an alif when it's a dual word. So you could say ya zaydani, or if it's a plural word, it'll be ya zayduna, where the waw represents halatu rafa. So the mufrad ma'rifa will be marfu normally, but if it is suffixed by a lam, which is used for istighatha, for seeking help, yeah, like ya la Zaydin, oh Zayd, and I'm calling Zayd for asking for I need his help, and that the lam is there before Zayd, then it will be makhfud, which just means majroor. So it means it'll be represented by a kasra when it is sahih. It doesn't have harf illat at the end. Similarly, if there's an alif of istighatha attached to the end of the word, so after the last letter there's an alif, then it will be maftu, and this is just to make it easy to say. For example, if there's an alif after Zayd, it'll become Zayda. It's quite hard to say Zaydua or Zaydia, so it just makes sense to say Ya Zayda. When the mufrad ma'rifa noun is made definite with lam ta'rif, then there will be then you'll add a particle in between the harf nida and the munada, the word being called, which is ayyuha if it's masculine, and ayatuha if it's feminine. So you might have read in the Quran, ya ayyatuha nafsul mutma'inna. An-nafsu is a feminine word, and before is ayatuha. Ya ayyatuha nafsul. Ayatuha is added, and ya is the vocative particle. Oh, ya ayyuhan nas. And nas is it's in the it's not singular in meaning, but you could say it's a singular word. It means people, but obviously in terms of meaning it's plural. So you add ayyuha between it and ya, which is used to call it. So, and this is it might be better explained with the example of ar-rajulu. So I could say ya ayyuha ar-rajulu. That might make it easier to understand. So the next case that a munada word would take is mansub. This is when it's mudaf, and we've already discussed this when we were saying ya Abdullah, when we were talking about instances when a verb is omitted from the maf'ul bihi, and we're still on that same subject. So it's when it's mudaf, the munada, it will be mansub. So ya Abdullah, you'll notice that dal on abd has a fatha. It's the word, it's the mudaf, and Allah is annexed to it, is being made possessed by the slave. So slave of Allah. Similarly, when the word resembles mudaf, it will also need to it also be mansub. So what does it mean to resemble mudaf? It just means that it needs another word for it to have complete meaning. This is usually tamyiz. It's not it's so it's like tamyiz. So like ya tali'an jabalan, so it means oh person who climbs the mountain. So the word tali'an just means oh person who climbs. It's like a mudaf. but it needs a word after it to complete what the speaker is trying to convey. So Jabalan is what is necessary for Talian to have complete meaning. So, O climber of the mountain, O person who climbs the mountain, you'll notice that Talian is mansub because it's because of it's the munada, and Jabalan is mansub because it's tamyiz, which we'll discuss soon. Then we have when there's a when it's a nakira and ghayrul nakira غير معينة or غير مقصودة. So it's not it's a nakira word, and nakira already means something which is general. But if I say a man went to the shop, then I'm already kind of specifying who this man is and some kind of details about him, although he's anonymous still. But when you have a blind man who's saying, "Oh man," he doesn't have the intention of any specific man within his mind. So he says, "Ya rajulan khudh biyadi," oh any man, right? A random man, like he's calling out for anyone in a crowd. Oh man, take my hand. It's completely randomized, and in this instance, the munada will also be mansub. One small part about munada is that it's permissible to shorten it, sort of like when you give someone a nickname, like Bilal, you call Billy or something like that, or Muhammad, you hear people say Mo. But Talkhimul munada just means contraction. It means that you omit the last letter of letters of a munada noun to make it easier to call the person. So this is when the noun is a proper noun, it's an alam, it's not murakkab, it's not compounded through idafa or isnad, annexation or ascription. It should also be, the word itself should be more than 3 letters. If it's less than 3 letters, then there's no need to make it even shorter. And it's permissible to do this contraction even when the word ends with a ta'nis. So if it's a feminine word like Ya Fatima, you could say Ya Fatim. And what's the last vowel going to be? The last vowel can be a dhamma in all scenarios. You can say for Mansur, you could always say Ya Mansu, or Ya Uthman, you could say Ya Uthmu. Or you can just give it the original vowel that would remain after contracting the remaining 2 letters. So you could say for Ya Maliku, you could say Ya Mali or Ya Malu. Uthman, you could say Ya Uthma instead of Ya Uthmu, etc. Interestingly, the particle Ya is used for nida, but it can also be used to address the lamented, the one mourned, mandub. Wa is also this, so you can say Ya Zayda or Wa Zayda when you're trying to express sorrow, etc. And it's and the i'rab of mandub, which will be the same as munada. And bringing this back to maf'ul bihi, because this is all about maf'ul bihi. There's a hidden ad'u when there's a ya before a noun, ya or a hamza maftuha, which are used to call people, the vocative particles. So we are discussing how verbs are made omitted. We've mentioned we mentioned 5. Sorry, one instance was when it's permissible, and 4 instances when they're necessary. There are more instances, but these are the primary instances which we will come across generally. So these are the ones that are normally mentioned and explained and discussed and taught. So inshallah, next time we will begin by discussing maf'ul fihi. Hopefully this session wasn't too long-winded, and I hope you have understood something. If not, please leave a comment and ask questions. If you need any explanations, I will respond inshallah. Wa akhir da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.